You're in a completely normal conversation, and suddenly someone makes a casual comment. Instantly, your heart rate spikes, your stomach drops. Before you even realize what's happening, you snap back with a defensive remark. 10 minutes later, the adrenaline clears, your rational brain comes back online, and you're left staring at the ceiling, wondering why you reacted with such intensity. We like to think of ourselves as rational actors, making conscious choices. The reality is that much of our behavior is dictated by an invisible autopilot, deeply ingrained patterns of thought and emotion that take the wheel the moment we feel threatened. Self-awareness is a mechanical, practical skill, the habit of paying attention to the specific ways your mind thinks, feels, and behaves in real time. It is a trainable skill. By mapping these invisible internal patterns, we gain the necessary leverage to interrupt our own destructive programming. The Johari window grid nats our self-awareness, dividing what we know about ourselves from what others see. The most dangerous quadrant is the blind spot, flaws everyone else observes but we deny. Hidden threats live here. Unseen, we cannot manage them, repeating mistakes constantly. To uncover this uncharted territory, we can analyze what bothers us about other people. As psychologist Carl Jung noted, traits that irritate us most in others are almost always a projection of qualities we dislike and ignore in ourselves. This analysis points us toward our core psychological vulnerabilities, the specific, painful feelings like sadness or shame that we work hardest to avoid. When a situation forces us near one of these core sensitivities, the brain immediately throws up a thick, protective smokescreen. It masks the vulnerable feeling with secondary aggressive emotions, like a sudden burst of anger or a wave of severe anxiety. When that hidden vulnerability is threatened, those blind spots take full control. We lash out or shut down, damaging our long-term goals just to survive a temporary moment of discomfort. This diagram shows the anatomy of a trigger. Deep inside the brain is the limbic system, featuring the amygdala, which detects threats. When it senses danger, it triggers a fight or flight response, completely hijacking the logical neocortex. Your advanced brain goes offline, causing an out-of-proportion reaction. To stop this hijack, psychologists use a 4-step state shifting practice. It acts as a biological circuit breaker. Step 1 is to name it. The moment you silently say to yourself, "I am triggered," you force the analytical neocortex to boot back up and observe the situation. Step 2 is to take space. You establish a hard rule for yourself. Never take action while in a triggered state. You gracefully remove yourself from the room or the conversation. Steps 3 and 4 are to shift your state and respond. You actively use physiological tools, like taking deep, focused breaths, going for a brisk walk, or deliberately moving your body to clear the adrenaline out of your bloodstream before you intentionally re-engage. By utilizing this framework, you transition out of acute crisis management. You turn a blind, automatic reaction into a calculated intention. Stopping a trigger in the moment is playing defense. To play offense, we have to build a mental baseline so these hijacks happen less frequently in the first place. The first daily repetition is meditating on the mind itself. By simply sitting and watching your thoughts arise without attaching to them, you internalize a crucial psychological fact: you are not your thoughts. The second habit involves breaking the comfort of your cognitive autopilot. You do this through micro-travel to unfamiliar local neighborhoods or learning a new skill. This forces your brain into beginner's mind, requiring flexibility and fresh observation. The third habit is values clarification. Schedule 30 minutes a month to sit quietly and ask yourself, why am I here? Without checking in on what you genuinely care about, it is incredibly easy to spend your life chasing artificial, societal goals. These daily repetitions produce a professional reflex. Like the martial arts master, you will still lose your balance during a crisis, but you have trained your mind to recover that balance faster than a novice. It requires the discipline to wait, to sit quietly while the turbulent mud of your emotions settles and the water clears before taking action. Observing your own internal machinery grants you the ability to pause during the friction of daily life, transforming a reflexive outburst into a conscious choice. You've just spent the last 10 minutes cooling off after a high-stress workplace conflict. You take one final breath and prepare to turn the knob. Your pulse has slowed, and the neocortex is back in control. This gives you the clarity to prioritize long-term results over the immediate biological urge to defend yourself. But as you re-enter, you face a different reality. Even though you are composed, the other person in the room is still fully triggered, stuck in a state of high emotional reactivity. Simply walking away to regulate yourself was only half the battle. Leading through this moment requires specific communication mechanics to actively de-escalate the other party and repair the situation. Imagine an angry project manager confronts you the moment you sit down. They claim a delay on your end has completely ruined 6 months of their work. Your step 1 is inoculation and framing. Instead of avoiding the friction, you must bring up the timeline sensitivity immediately and directly. Addressing the context early prevents the other person from feeling blindsided or dismissed, setting a container for a professional discussion. Now move into step 2, active observation. Stop speaking and listen to the complaint, but use this time to carefully scan for nonverbal stress cues. This meter shows the physiological indicators of a triggered state: a clenched jaw, rigid shoulders, or an elevated voice. Recognizing these signals lets you look past the aggression. They aren't motivated by animosity, but by a fear of failure. Now you apply step 3, empathetic connection. You provide deep, reflective listening to validate their experience without necessarily agreeing with their conclusions. There is a critical failure point here. You must never tell an agitated colleague that they are overreacting or triggered. Using psychological labels on someone currently in a limbic state acts like pouring gasoline on an emotional fire. It makes them feel judged rather than heard. Instead, use reflective phrasing. Try, "I hear that you feel this timeline shift jeopardizes your work." As the meter shows, this validation helps their rational brain come back online. When someone feels heard, their need to fight subsides. Remember, empathy is a tactical tool for de-escalation, not an admission of guilt. However, you must also maintain step 4, setting healthy boundaries. Do not confuse de-escalation with accepting personal abuse. Use the 3 whys technique to find your internal motivation. Asking why you feel uncomfortable filters past external noise to your firm baseline. This baseline represents clarity, the boundary you deploy to shift focus back to the work. You might confidently say, "I want to find a solution for this project, but I'm going to ask that we keep our comments focused on the timeline, not on each other." Deploying these rules of engagement protects your self-esteem and asserts control over the room without matching their hostility. With the boundary set and the temperature lowered, move to step 5, connecting to a shared purpose. For this scenario, explicitly state the mutual goal, ensuring tomorrow's launch happens on schedule and without technical errors. Then ask a collaborative question. How can I best support your team over the next few hours to make that happen? This drop into the green zone represents a shift in focus. A collaborative question invites their brain to move from defense to problem solving. Aligning on a shared purpose overrides conflict, positioning you both against a common problem. The tension dissolves and the hostility is replaced by active brainstorming. You've moved the situation from a standoff to a solution. You achieved this through 5 structural steps: framing the issue, empathizing, setting boundaries, and aligning on purpose. Simply avoiding conflict isn't enough for a leader. True emotional intelligence is the ability to step into a volatile situation and actively manage the repair. So take your breath, step back into the fire, and use these tools to lead the conversation.